People always assume that if you're quiet, you're weak, that if you choose to watch rather than speak, you must be clueless. But silence is not ignorance, it's strategy. They called him Raymond. At work, he was the guy in the corner, always early, always silent. No one knew much about him. He never joined the coffee breaks, never shared memes in the group chat, never laughed at the boss's fake jokes. He was just there. People laughed behind his back. That guy gives me serial killer vibes, one of his coworkers joked once. They thought he didn't hear. He did. He heard everything, and he remembered. But Raymond didn't speak. He didn't react. He simply watched. And while the world moved with noise and chaos, he observed, quiet, calculating, storing every insult, every betrayal, every little crack in the facade of those who thought they were untouchable. See, Raymond had a theory. If you speak too soon, you reveal your cards. But if you wait long enough, everyone shows theirs. And everyone did. His boss, Mr. Hayworth, a man loved by management and hated by everyone underneath him, was stealing bonuses from employees and pocketing them through fake performance reviews. Raymond knew. He watched. Jenny from HR, the one with the sweet voice and the fake smile, she was sleeping with married executives and using the pillow talk to climb the corporate ladder. Raymond knew. He watched. Even Peter, his only supposed friend in the company, was the one who anonymously reported him to management for underperformance because he was jealous of Raymond's flawless project scores. Raymond found the email. He watched, but he said nothing because Raymond wasn't interested in fighting battles. He was planning a war. Raymond lived in a one-bedroom apartment. No friends, no family, no distractions. But inside that apartment, he built something, an archive. Not just physical, digital, cloud-based, hidden across multiple servers. He had files on everyone, screenshots, emails, surveillance footage from cleverly placed cameras, audio recordings from bugged coffee machines, and Bluetooth devices. He didn't just know their secrets, he owned them. Because that's the thing about silent men. You forget they're there until it's too late. Then came the moment that always arrives in every villain story. A trigger. They fired him. No explanation, no warning, no severance, just a cold email. Your services are no longer needed. Please clear your desk immediately. It was signed by Mr. Hayworth, co-signed by Jenny from HR, and forwarded to the entire team, just to humiliate him. Raymond walked out without saying a word. No tears, no anger, just silence. But in his mind, the plan had already begun. Back in his apartment, Raymond sat in front of his screen, fingers interlocked. He looked like a man ready to play God, because unlike them, he had nothing to lose. And men with nothing to lose, they're the most dangerous kind. The first domino fell when Hayworth's financial records got leaked anonymously to the company's board. 3 offshore accounts, hundreds of thousands in embezzled funds, screenshots, spreadsheets, transaction logs, all tied to performance reviews with fabricated signatures. 2 days later, he was escorted out of the building in handcuffs. Jenny didn't even have time to react before her compromising photos surfaced on 3 gossip blogs and were mysteriously CC'd to the CEO's wife. Her career vaporized in a single news cycle. And Peter? Raymond didn't expose him. No, that would be too merciful. Instead, he sent Peter all the proof of his betrayal, anonymously, then watched from a hidden camera as guilt and paranoia slowly ate him alive. Peter quit on his own. Rumor was he checked into a mental health facility after claiming someone was watching him. Raymond smiled, not because he was cruel, but because for the first time, he spoke, not with words, with consequences. Raymond didn't stop there. See, when a man spends years being silent, when he's dismissed, mocked, and underestimated, he doesn't just want revenge, he wants control. And Raymond? He wanted the whole city. When a silent man finishes with revenge, he doesn't rest, he evolves. Because once you taste power, silence becomes your weapon. And people? They become your pieces. Raymond had taken down a company, a handful of powerful people destroyed, without lifting a single finger in violence, just information, just precision, just patience. But something inside him had changed. He no longer felt satisfaction, just clarity. The system is a game. The rules were built by people louder than me. So what happens when the silent man becomes the one writing the rules? He didn't want to disappear. He wanted to rise, not in the light, in the shadows. Raymond began small. He started by infiltrating forums, places where whistleblowers met in secret, anonymous servers, where employees of massive corporations leaked documents, stories, confessions. Raymond didn't post. He just watched and documented. He built digital folders on politicians, CEOs, influencers, tech billionaires. All of them had cracks in their armor. All of them had secrets they thought were buried. But Raymond was patient. He didn't strike. He studied. The more he learned, the more disgusted he became. There were men running billion-dollar charities who funneled donations into offshore accounts. There were motivational speakers who beat their wives behind closed doors. There were politicians who traded insider information for favors and sex. Raymond didn't see leaders. He saw parasites. And to him, they were all playing with fire. Because now, the silent man was watching. Raymond moved to a new city, a colder one, a place where everyone wore masks, both literal and metaphorical. He didn't rent a flashy apartment. He chose an abandoned warehouse and wired it with solar power, high-speed satellite internet, a backup generator, and soundproof walls. Inside, it looked like the control room of a government agency. Multiple monitors, encrypted servers, voice modulators, facial recognition systems, and a wall covered in red thread and photos. At the center, one phrase written in black ink: the louder they are, the more they hide. Raymond didn't go after the obvious targets. He went after the ones everyone loved. The philanthropist who built schools in Africa but ran a child trafficking ring out of Eastern Europe. Raymond found him, tracked him, and when the time was right, he dropped an anonymous package at a national newspaper. Not a headline, a scandal, a reckoning. The man vanished. No trial, no public goodbye, just gone. No one knew who exposed him, but Raymond did, and he smiled, because now the silent man wasn't just destroying monsters, he was creating a myth. Whispers began to spread online. Posts on Reddit, 4chan, X, formerly Twitter, stories of a faceless figure taking down untouchable elites. Some called him a vigilante. Some called him a hacker. Others said he was just a ghost story for corrupt CEOs to tell each other when the stock market dipped. But Raymond wasn't any of those things. He was an idea, and ideas are bulletproof. One night, Raymond intercepted a private Zoom meeting between several Wall Street executives. They were discussing a plan to crash the housing market in a specific city, buy properties cheap, and resell them to desperate families at 10 times the cost. Legal? Barely. Ethical? Not even close. Raymond listened, recorded, waited. He didn't leak the call. Instead, he sent each executive a single email. No words, just a video of the call, edited to highlight their exact statements. They didn't know who sent it. They didn't know what else he had. 2 days later, the plan was canceled. Fear was now his tool. Not threats, not blackmail, just the idea that someone was always watching and that silence could be deadly. But Raymond wasn't done. Because this story, it wasn't about justice anymore. It was about design. Raymond began to play both sides. He started giving tips to small activists and journalists under fake aliases, helping whistleblowers leak information through secure channels he built himself. They thought they were exposing the truth, and they were. But what they didn't know, Raymond was choosing which truth. He became a god among mortals, curating chaos, one leak at a time. Sometimes he exposed real monsters. Sometimes he just moved pieces around the board to collapse companies whose agendas didn't serve his new vision. Because now, Raymond had a vision. He wanted to create a new order, a world where silence ruled, where noise was the weakness, where those who screamed the loudest were dragged into the light, and the ones who watched from the shadows shaped the narrative. They taught me to be quiet, but now, my silence speaks louder than any of their screams. He was no longer just a man. He was a force, and no one even knew his name. But there was one problem, one person from his past who hadn't fallen yet, one thread left hanging, a woman, Elena. Not a lover, not an enemy, something worse, a mirror, someone just as quiet, just as calculating, just as invisible. And now, she was watching him. Power isn't loud. It doesn't scream or demand attention. Power waits, listens, watches, until the right moment, when it strikes once and never misses. Raymond had become a ghost, a myth whispered through encrypted forums and boardroom nightmares. The man who sees everything, says nothing, and acts only when the world thinks he's asleep. But even ghosts can be hunted. And one day, Raymond found a letter. No postmark, no return address, just slid under the steel door of his hidden compound, like a breeze through a crack. One word, handwritten, watched. He froze, not out of fear. Raymond was beyond that, but curiosity. Who could find him? He scanned every frame of every surveillance camera he had on the property. Nothing. No face. No shadow. Not even a heat signature. The letter had just appeared. Raymond placed it on his desk and stared. Only one person could pull something like this off. Elena Soren. He knew her from the early days, before the suit and tie wars, before the hacking and the corporations and the manipulation. They were interns at a small data firm. Two nobodies, both unnaturally silent. They never spoke to each other, but they understood each other. Raymond was strategy. Elena was surveillance. She didn't break into systems. She became them. He remembered the day she disappeared. No goodbye, no trace. Just her empty desk and a post-it that read, "If you ever think you're alone, you're wrong." Now, years later, she was back and watching him. The next few days were tense. Raymond scrubbed his systems, changed his encryptions, relocated his satellite relays. But she still left breadcrumbs. Another message, encoded inside a podcast he listened to every morning. A quote buried in the metadata of a news article. And then, a photo of him, sitting in his compound, drinking coffee, taken from a height and angle that defied logic. It was personal now. Raymond knew her message. You see everything? Not anymore. But he wouldn't run. He welcomed it. The hunter had become the hunted. But what Elena didn't know was that Raymond had changed. He wasn't playing defense. He was baiting her. He created a false narrative, leaked sensitive intel about a planned corporate takedown, a trap, and she took it, or so he thought. The next day, every server in his network shut down simultaneously. Power, gone. Internet, dead. Monitors glitched, one by one, until all that was left was a black screen, with a blinking cursor. Then, words appeared. Nice try, but I've already seen the ending. Raymond didn't panic. He simply walked to the back wall of his compound, removed a single panel, and revealed a hard drive, one that had never touched the internet. The original archive, his deepest files, untraceable, unhackable. He plugged it into a local-only terminal and smiled. You can chase shadows, he whispered, but you can't catch what doesn't move. But just as the screen lit up, something strange happened. The folder structure was empty. Elena had already been here. She didn't want to destroy him. She wanted to replace him. Raymond stepped outside for the first time in weeks. Cold air hit his face. It was quiet, too quiet. Then he saw it, projected across a building, a block away. The silent man has fallen. She was framing him. Public databases were being rewritten. News feeds were getting corrupted. Whistleblowers were receiving messages from his name, but saying the wrong things. He wasn't just being hunted, he was being erased. But Raymond smiled, because this was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment where his silence became his weapon again. He let the world believe he had fallen. He watched as panic grew in corporate offices, executives wondering who would be targeted next. He listened to the whispers online, Reddit threads asking why the ghost hadn't struck in weeks, and in the chaos Elena was creating, she made her first mistake. She got loud. She publicly dismantled a major tech firm overnight, left digital footprints all over. It wasn't like her, but Raymond knew why. She wanted credit now. She didn't just want control. She wanted the legend he built. So he waited, until one night, a live stream popped up online. It had no title, no chat, just a black room, a single light, and a voice modulator. A woman's voice. Elena. She began to speak about corruption, surveillance, truth, power. People believed it was him, but Raymond was already inside the stream. He had embedded code in the relay server days before, and with one keystroke, he flipped the broadcast. The screen glitched. Elena's voice scrambled. Then, her face. No mask. No distortion. Just her. Live. Exposed. She froze. The world was watching, and Raymond whispered into her own feed, "You forgot the rule. The man who says nothing still hears everything." Within hours, global media picked it up. The myth had returned. This time, with a new headline. The ghost outs the pretender. Elena disappeared. Some said she fled to Eastern Europe. Others claimed she was captured by private security firms. But Raymond knew better. She was still out there, watching, waiting. But now, she was the hunted. And him? He became a shadow once more. No name, no face, just a warning. To anyone who thinks they're untouchable, the silent man sees everything.